Did you know that your thoughts influence your emotions and your emotions influence your thoughts? Negative thoughts are something we all experience, but thought reframing can help us to regain control of those thoughts and even shift our thoughts into a more positive perspective. Welcome to Normalize the Conversation. I'm your host, Francesca Reicheter, and today I'm joined by a clinical psychologist, author, and expert in evidence-based treatment for stress and anxiety, parenting without anger, and the importance of emotional intelligence in the workplace, Renee Mill. In this episode, we discuss a topic that can truly change the way you view the world, thought reframing. Join us as we explore what thought reframing is, why it's crucial for overcoming negative thinking, and we'll even provide you with practical tips on how to incorporate this powerful tool into your daily life. Renee, thank you so much for joining me today. I am really excited about our conversation. But before we begin, I really just want to check in with you. How are you really?
Fortunately, today I'm really good. I've had a bad few months previously, but at the moment I'm really good.
I'm glad to hear that. It's really nice when you get to a point where it's like, it's been a couple of rough months, but I'm having a good day.
That's right.
Well, I am really excited for our conversation because we're going to talk about negative thoughts. Now, personally, I feel like I'm the queen of negative thoughts. That's something that I'm constantly working on. So much so that my next workbook is really focused on developing a guide for me to be able to recognize, like, that's a negative thought talking, that's an insecurity, that's not a fact, and give myself some kind of motivation, encouragement. I'm one of those people, and I think it's really common with my generation, of constantly looking at reasons why we can't do something or why we're not good enough, why other people are online, social media, posting pictures of their families and their cars and their houses, or whatever else they're doing, and constantly comparing ourselves and beating ourselves down. So I'm excited for this conversation, and I really want to jump in with, first of all, what are negative thoughts?
Well, there are different theories. I was originally analytically trained in the 1970s, and this was before CBT and ACT. And in those days, the push was very much that your negative thoughts come from your childhood and from trauma. And I still believe that a lot of the time. And often when I work with people, I look more at their self-esteem because comparing yourself all the time often has a lot to do with low self-esteem. It's one of the key features that you don't know who you are. So depending who you're with, how you feel. So when you're with someone who's doing less well than you feel quite good. And then when you're with someone who's doing better than you feel bad. So often it's a self-esteem issue. And that's very relevant. But even if that isn't relevant, or or you're going through a good phase, the other theory is that we have a mind that is active all the time to protect us. That it's an evolutionary thing, that it's always on the lookout to keep us safe. Our mind works and tells us be careful or look after yourself or do better. So I think that both exist, and at different times we need to look at both. And I don't think it's just a one simple answer.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, first of all, going back to like depending on who you're in a room with, who you're around, when I'm with people who I see as better than me, who are more experienced than me, who are older than me, who have just something that I don't have that I want, I definitely tend to feel more insecure and more criticizing myself, constantly telling myself why I'm not good enough, why I don't deserve to be in this room, why I should be quiet. I learned recently that if I'm in a big group of people, I tend to shy away. I'm an extrovert if I am speaking. I love speaking in front of a group of people. But if you drop me in a group of people for like a networking or just an event or a party, I tend to shy away because I'm looking at all the reasons why I'm not good enough to talk to everyone. And that's something that's very overwhelming, is that constant comparison. But then also to your point of kind of our mind just always wanting to protect ourselves. A lot of times it's like my mind's trying to protect me from feeling not good enough. So it's
That's
telling me
right.
I'm not, so I don't engage in a conversation that's going to make me feel that way. So it's like preemptively making me feel that way. And it's really overwhelming when you just don't know what to do with that. And your thoughts are essentially controlling you in a way because you honestly sometimes can feel paralyzed by it.
That's right. And so it's important to think about the self, that you have a self, and it's yourself that knows you're having the thoughts. So you don't really work with the thoughts in isolation. It's a sense of, I'm Francesca and suddenly this thought has popped into my head, or I'm Francesca and that's an old pattern. There comes the comparison part of me again. And so the more you work on the self as context, or the self as the observer, or some people call it your soul, or some people call it your consciousness, that never changes, and that never has anything that is pure and stays the same no matter what. And so practicing noticing your thoughts and noticing your trends, we call it diffusion, is a way of being aware of, I have a self, and these thoughts and sometimes feelings and memories and sensations come to visit. So that's a big part of the work that I do, is to helping people not be the thought, or not let their thoughts bully them or jerk them around. It's going, oh, here comes that thought again. And then there's a moment where we have what's called a choice point of, what do I want to do about that thought? Am I going to let it derail me? But if it's really a protective thought, then no, I need to talk to that thought and understand, is it my intuition that I'm in danger? Or is it my intuition that I'm going to be put down and maybe I should leave or do something? Or no, it's that old, I'm not good enough thought. And then what do I want to do about it? So developing the self as context is very important.
That is really important, because taking a step back and looking at it as kind of like a third party, not as, I think personally for me, when I'm feeling really anxious and I am criticizing myself, I have to look at myself from a different point of view, and not as this fear-based person, but as this 25-year-old girl who's trying to figure it out, and give myself an identity outside of that fear, because that fear is has become my identity at that point. That's something that I was living behind for so long. I was living behind this mask of, I have to just be quiet all the time, that I can't speak up, because then if I speak up and I'm wrong, what happens? The world will end. Or what if someone doesn't like me? Or just all these thoughts. So separating myself into not just this piece of fear, but as a person who's figuring it out and learning to listen to what that person's trying to say. Because what are the purpose of the thoughts? Are the thoughts really telling me that I'm not good enough and that's the fact? Or are the thoughts telling me that I'm worried? I'm worried because I want to be accepted. I want to feel like I have a voice. And instead of giving me a voice because of that, I'm allowing that fear to silence me, and learning how to shift it from, I just want to have a voice, I want to feel accepted, I want to feel loved. How can I do that for myself? And when maybe I don't get the response that people want, how can I still validate myself instead of allowing that to re-spiral those negative thoughts?
Correct. So one of the things, do you mind if I just give you a little bit of feedback?
Yes, go for it, please.
So one of our tools, when you said I'm the queen of negative thoughts, one of our thoughts is normalizing that. So we all have lots of negative thoughts. And the way that I talk about it is, we're not an exception to the rule. When a person says, I'm the queen, so I don't mean this in a negative way, but it's a common thing we do. No one does it like me, or I'm the worst off, or, you're immediately, so normalizing it is actually going, we all have negative thoughts, and sometimes they're worse and sometimes they're better. Like I had a bad few months and I'm in a good phase, and it will come and it will go. So when we normalize it, we all do it all the time. Everybody, even the biggest experts, will have insecure thoughts. How am I going to do on the podcast today? Is my information going to be relevant? Maybe the substance are a bit different, but it's quite normal. And then we go, okay, so this is a normal human response. And then what you did is actually have self-compassion. I'm a 25-year-old trying to work it out. So that's an important part of actually dealing with the thoughts. And what's really changed from when I originally trained is, in the psychoanalytic world, the belief was if you had a lot of therapy and enough therapy, you would resolve everything. But now we know that sometimes we never resolve things, but you don't need to. So we're not, again, talking about in-depth trauma, and I'm not minimizing any of the trauma work, but what I'm saying is sometimes our insecure thoughts just pop into our heads, and we need to know this is just a thought, which is what you're trying to say. And it's not it's just a thought. That's my insecure thought coming in. but I always have a choice. I can, even if I have that thought, I can still move my arms and legs and act in a way that I want to behave. So we separate actions from thoughts. And so one of the tools that we do in acceptance and commitment therapy is where even when someone has feelings, sensations, we get them to still move your fingers, move your toes, stretch, and notice that even though you've got this thought or the feelings, you can still act. So what is it I want to achieve now? And let me still do the action and sort of live comfortably with that thought. Sometimes we can challenge it, but sometimes we can't. And so it's about going, but I'm not going to let it derail my day. So it's not being insincere, because we all actually do this. We all, for example, I don't know how you felt this morning, but often we, in the service of our job, we might put on a professional face, even though inside we're a little bit nervous. We all know how to do that, because our higher value is to deliver a good podcast or to write a good book. So again, we're not minimizing trauma, but these insecure thoughts that just pop in all the time, we sometimes our choice is going, I want to network. I'm going to put a smile on my face. I'm not going to let it derail me. Nothing dangerous is going to happen. And we actually, some people say fake it till you make it. It's actually just acting in the way you sincerely want to be. So the different levels at which we interact with these thoughts.
Okay, I love that, because that whole fake it till you make it thing, for me, it was very, when I'm feeling insecure and I feel like, okay, I have to put on a smile so that the world doesn't know, so people don't know. I have to post that picture on social media so people think my life is great. That whole kind of concept of it felt very overwhelming, because it's like, okay, I'm not living authentically. I'm just hiding behind the smile. But the way you have framed it to living in the way you want to, right? That acting in that direction really helps change it, because sometimes I feel so guilty. And I think that's really common for all of us out there posting on social media. Like, we want to post these pictures and show up in the way that we're supposed to, but then also feeling like, do I have to have a smile on today? Is it okay that I'm not sharing everything? And kind of this balance of, when is it okay to put on that smile? When is it okay to fake it till you make it type? And when is it okay to kind of take that step back and be like, I'm not okay today. I'm not ready to do this. And I need to sit with these thoughts maybe a little bit longer.
Absolutely. And if you think about it, the way, is it's to think about what is my highest value today. So if you're in a relationship, it's important to think about, is it, do I want to be loving or do I want to be vulnerable? Today, my highest value is to be vulnerable. So I'm going to sit with my friend and I'm going to let it all out, and I'm going to share with them how horrible I'm feeling. But let's say they being vulnerable, I might go, you know what, today my higher value is going to be loving, even though inside I also need to be heard. I'm going to actually focus on them today and just self-soothe my need and be loving. You're not faking it in the way that you're being insincere. You're just choosing a higher value. I'm going to be here for you today. And I'm sure we've all done that. And we put our vulnerable feelings on hold for a little while. So I really want to stress, faking it is not being insincere. It's sincerely acting in accordance with a value, where we act in a way where there's a little bit of a conflict. There's a part going, no, it's your turn, or you spill it out, and you go, actually, no, this person, I need to give them time. I can wait a little bit to do mine. So we're always acting in terms of some values. And it's the same thing when we have a very negative, what you were talking about, insecure thought that's saying, I'm bad, I'm useless, I'm terrible. We go, is that a kind thing to do to myself? Would I say this to a friend? And then you go, no, I'm going to be kind to myself. I would never say to a friend, you're useless. So why am I saying it to myself? What would I say to my friend? Let me say that to myself.
Yeah. Yes, I love when I take it that step back, and what would I say to my friend? I learned the hard way that the way I talk to myself is, and the way my friends talk to themselves, is that we're constantly beating down on ourselves in a way that we think other people are seeing us, and not looking at how other people are seeing us. I actually sent a text to a bunch of my friends one day when I was really beating down on myself. It was like, why do you love me? Like, why do you like to hang out with me? What is it? Like, why are we friends? And to see like all these nice things that they said, and then taking that into perspective and looking at myself through that lens. My friends don't see that I am not good enough, or that I'm too young, or that I'm not pretty enough, or whatever insecure thought that I'm having. They're seeing someone that they love, who's working hard toward what they want, who's trying their best, who's failing and trying, right? Getting back up, who's doing all of it. And I think it's really, really amazing when we change that perspective of how we're looking at ourselves, and looking at ourselves as a friend, and even through the lens of how our friends see us, so that we can develop some compassion. Because for some reason, it's so hard to be compassionate toward ourselves. I don't know why, but it is.
And that's when and I say everybody has these thoughts, but some people have more thoughts and more extreme thoughts. And that's when the childhood thing comes in. And often the way people name their thoughts will often be the name of a strict parent, or, an unkind teacher, or a sergeant in the army. That our brain actually changes when we have someone who keeps bullying us or calling us names. So that's when one has to actually go, this is no longer just a normal little, am I good enough? But then I can get on with my day. This is something that I have to deal with in a deeper way. So this is when I talk about on different levels, we have to be aware of our thoughts. How often do they come? How severe are they? Are we able to just put them on hold for a little bit when we need to? That's often a test. And if I really can't, maybe my brain is telling me there's something deeper that I need to do. But having said that, if I can just talk about something else, and that is that we live in a society where we've lost touch with values. And this is where social media is very superficial. It's all about presentation, photoshopping. And it's important that when I talk about self as context or self, that we actually see ourselves as a human being that has potential to have meaning, and that has potential to be a value-based person and contribute. Look what you do with your life. You say you're only 25, but you run an organization, and you're writing books, and you're contributing. And we also have to have a little bit of wisdom to actually go, social media is good up to a point, but we actually have to go, what are our deepest values? Because as human beings, the more we strengthen ourselves as context, and we're able to say, we don't like that value, and we want to live with compassion and kindness and generosity and meaning and contribution and reliability and responsibility, all the traits that we know are good, then that also helps those thoughts, because we actually go, I'm making a valuable contribution. It is how people see me, but also the way we challenge those thoughts is to go, actually, no, look what I did today. I wrote a book. And so I'm making a valuable contribution, or I'm a valuable, unique human being.
Yes, looking at ourselves as valuable. I know it's so easy to open up social media and see what everyone else is doing, and looking like, okay, well, everyone else my age is getting married and having kids and buying houses. And I'm like, where is that for me? And it's so easy to look at that and be like, okay, I'm not doing anything. I am not doing anything. I'm not on track. I don't have the clothes everyone has. I don't have the face or the body or the whatever I'm telling myself that day. Looking at what I am doing, what I do have, changing that perspective and saying, okay, maybe I am not getting married today, but I am working on something that I love and that I'm passionate about. And that's okay. That doesn't make me a less valuable person. It just makes me doing something different than what someone else is doing. And that's okay, because we're all on our own paths. But it's so easy to go online and see what everyone else is doing and be like, okay, I'm not doing what I'm supposed to do. I think that's like one of the hardest things at my age for me and a few of my friends, is that, okay, everyone else our age is getting married, having kids, doing these things. And we're like, okay, we're figuring it out. We're still trying to figure out how to find the right person, or how to figure out what our career path is really going to look like today, or what our goals are. And to see when it looks like everyone else has it figured out, we take away our own value and what we have done so far, and just diminish it as, okay, I haven't done that yet, so I'm not good enough.
Absolutely. And it's not only the contribution of what you've done is reflecting a value of who you are. It's about identifying your deepest values. And I want to share something with you, because I'm at the other end of the scale. However, the exact same thing is happening to me because I'm at the age where all my friends are retiring and going on 6-month cruises and saying to me, why are you still working? And there's a pressure that and I see no value in spending 6 months. I love cruising for a week at a time. Don't mind a holiday or playing bridge. I just could not sit 3 times a week and play bridge. I'm not into games. I also like to write books, be on podcasts, ran a conference on Wednesday. I don't feel old and I don't want to retire. My deepest value is to contribute and be in alignment with my work and what I do. But I promise you, I'm going through exactly the same thing where I look at people and they go, why are you still working? Because their value is very different. They have worked for retirement, whatever they see. But it'll happen when you're married. You'll have those mothers who work and feel guilty about it, and those mothers who don't work and feel guilty about it. And each time people make different choices based on our inner values. So sometimes we actually have to sit down and go, am I living in alignment with my value? If your value, it sounds like it's a lot like mine, is to contribute with your knowledge and to work and really, you have a passion and a calling, then that is a very high value. And you might always live in accordance with that and therefore make decisions. You might therefore, when you do get married, still be a working mom. Whereas maybe somebody else won't because their higher value might be, I don't know, staying at home with kids. And I'm not criticizing, they're all good values. So it's about what is my highest value? What kind of person do I want to be? And if I'm living in alignment with that, then it's a day well spent. But other people will be doing other things because they have different values.
I love the reframe on what are your values and are you living in line with that? Because like we've been saying, it's negative thoughts are kind of normal. We all experience it sometimes. And we're going to, right? There's constantly going to be things that make us maybe feel insecure, unsure. The world is so uncertain every day, right? Can't really always control that they happen, but not allowing them to control us, not allowing them to take away from who we are and checking in with our values and who we want to be and are we aligned with that? That's something I'm really going to start working on because like I've said with this, it's so easy to look at everyone else. And maybe it's because I grew up with social media every day. So my entire childhood was, why didn't I get enough likes? Why is everyone liking their posts and not mine? Why don't they follow me back? Right? It was like that was the mindset that I grew up in. And I think for this next generation growing up in that mindset as well, learning to figure out what our values are and are we aligned with that instead of are we aligned with whatever celebrity is trending that week or who's ever the most popular, most followed person and what their values are, because their values and my values may be very different and that's okay. It doesn't take away from who I am and shouldn't make me criticize myself. So I love the reframe into what are your values?
And it's not easy because we're bombarded, as you say, by social media and all kinds of media that say you've got to look a certain way, you've got to drive a certain car, and you've got to cruise with a certain liner, and it is very much this pressure, and people spend millions of dollars, organizations, to push their brand. And it's not easy to step back and go, doesn't sit with me. It's not who I want to be. It takes a lot of courage to be yourself. And I don't mean be different or silly, but to actually go, I'm going to dress how I feel comfortably, or I'm going to not get married even if all my friends are, because that doesn't sit with me right now. But it takes a lot of courage to be yourself. But the more you can be your authentic self, that's really what happiness is. You can't pursue happiness as a goal in itself. We think that, I'm thinking of all these salespeople, they always start off, if you've ever gone to Amway or real estate, they often say, sit at home and just make money. It'll just come pouring in. And if you look at those videos, there's always a yacht in the background. And they're going, I was living at home, not working, and now I have a yacht and 3 holidays. This is what you're going to be aiming for. But it's not, that's the superficiality of it. No one's actually talking about attachment and relationships and real human values, that actually where happiness comes from. Happiness doesn't come from consumerism. It's a 1-minute excitement and then it's gone. And so we actually have to check in, also be part of social media, but also have, you have different parts. You have the part of your brain that's protecting you and going, are you okay? Are you safe? But you also have a wise part. And even if you're 4 years old, you have a wise part that's going, is this really good for me? Do I really subscribe to these values? Do I have to go along with it? And sometimes one has to sit with that part as well and go, maybe I don't really like this value. And why am I going along with it?
Yes, it brings me back to being in like maybe sixth or seventh grade, and we had to do this activity where it was write down the top 3 values for you. And I remember we had to read them out loud and going around the classroom, and I was toward the end, and everyone had the same 3 values. And mine were completely different than everyone else. Everyone was like, I don't remember all 3, but I know it was like family and happiness was everyone's top 2. And I know my top 2 were influence and change. I just really wanted to have some kind of influence and change something. I started my nonprofit, I started as a blog when I was 12. I just wanted to be part of some kind of influence. And by the time it got to me, I was like, oh no, I'm wrong. Everyone else has the exact same values and answers. I'm wrong. This isn't, I can't do this. I can't say this. And I remember sitting there and just like shaking and not being able to talk. And I think it's so common. And not to say that I don't value family or value happiness and figuring out what that means to me, but my 11, 12-year-old brain was like, I want to influence something. I want to change something. That's what really resonates to me. But I felt like I had to hide that. Like that made me wrong or not good enough. And then for so long, I wasn't living within those values. I was starting the blog or starting the podcast, then feeling ashamed by it and hiding away and starting and stopping until I was think 20, 21 before I finally said like, no, that's who I've always been, who I've always wanted to be. But
Right.
it took like a decade to understand that just because my top 2 values that I thought of at 11 years old were different, didn't make them wrong.
That's right. That's right. That's incredible. But you're right. It starts when we're very young, very, very young. And so one of the, I'll just give you a practical example. I remember many years ago, I was with a group of women and they were talking about haircuts and it was, I don't know, something, the shaggy had come in or something new and and after 10 minutes, I was bored with the discussion. So I don't mind small talk for 10 minutes and then it's not really what I love to do. And I'd find the first thought that would come in is I'm not good enough. There's something wrong with me. Everyone else is loving this conversation and I'm odd and I'm different. And then I would have another judgmental part that would come in and go, well, you're better than them because that makes you feel better because you smart and you want to talk clever things. So you better. And then I think, what is the value? I actually want to be a loving friend. So even though they're both true, in one way I don't fit in another way, but I'm actually just going to be here. My value here will be to be loving to them and to share with them, even though it's not really my ideal. And then maybe next time I'll just pop in or I'll come less or I'll do something differently, but not letting those thoughts bully me, either feel insecure and skulk out or feel judgmental and, I don't need to be here. And actually go, okay, I want to be a good friend and I'm going to just fit in the best that I can and be loving. And that's when we talk about not letting your thoughts jerk you around, but to go, in this moment, this is what I wanted or how I want to be. But these are very normal thoughts and they pull us around and we just have to notice them. There's the insecure thought. And I'm not going to believe it because I'm just different and I do want a more academic discussion. There's the judgmental thought, which I don't love about myself, but I can always be loving or I can be kind or I can be responsive in this moment. And so we can't always be happy. We can't always love what we're going through, but we can always live in alignment with our values and go, that was a job well done. I lived in alignment. And that sense of fulfillment, a side effect is happiness, but you're not pursuing it directly because maybe I didn't enjoy that hour really, but I leave feeling good about myself with self-respect that I did a good thing. I didn't undermine anybody else. I wasn't nasty to anyone else. I was a loving friend.
It is so important, like you said, looking at our values and listening to the thoughts and making an informed decision by hearing what our thoughts are saying and understanding them and where they're coming from. I love how you looked at those 2 thoughts and you're like, they're valid thoughts. I am feeling this way, but what are my values? How do I want to be in this moment? How do I want to present myself and what can I do? And I think it's so easy to not listen to the purpose of our thoughts, but to solely listen to the thought and say, okay, well, I'm better than everyone else. I don't want to be here and walk away or be like, I'm done with this conversation. It's so easy for us to do that. But to then listen to the thoughts and say, well, actually, I just really enjoy more intellectual, challenging conversations. But I still want to be a loving friend and be part of their conversation and be there with them and support them. So how can I do that instead of just allowing that thought of I'm better than everyone, which is so common. I know for me, when I'm in a conversation, I don't want to be in. I'm like, no, I'm like,
We
is
don't
this really
often
how
admit that. We always admit the
yeah.
insecure thoughts. We never admit to the judgmental thoughts.
Oh yeah. No, I'm learning that I do get those judgmental thoughts. I'm like, oh, I don't want to hang out with these people because I don't like this conversation. They just don't understand. It's like, okay, we have different values and different things we want to talk about. For them, talking about what's happening in their social life is super exciting and I love it for a little bit. But I really want to talk about what's happening in the world. I'm one of those people constantly talking about what's happening and coming up with solutions that probably don't work. But that's like the personality that I have, and learning to listen to thoughts and say, you know what, sometimes I'm not in the headspace to be able to sit and have a conversation about something that isn't necessarily what I feel like talking about today. Today, I'm really aggravated about what's happening in the world and I want to have a conversation about this. I can't just sit and have a conversation about what happened at a party a week ago for like the third time. And learning that it's okay to recognize when these thoughts are maybe a little more powerful today. And I'm not in the headspace for this conversation. So I'm not going to put myself in a position that's then going to make me feel very upset and maybe make me react in a way that I don't want to. Because it's so easy to be like, to not want to be somewhere, to then go somewhere and let everyone know that you don't want to be there. It doesn't have to be like that. If we're listening to the thoughts, recognizing when they're happening, and recognizing, hey, today I really can't be a loving and supportive friend. I don't think I should be at that table, and leaving it at that, because it's better to sometimes just admit like, hey, I'm not that person today, than to show up and allow that judgment to then project on other people and make them feel like, oh, this person doesn't care about me. It's not that I don't care. It's just that the thought in my head right now is so strong. That's the only thing I want to talk about. And sometimes I can't like calm down that intensity. And that's like, I don't be like, that's so normal to never be able to calm down the intensity. But if that's something that's very real for me and that happens, learning like, hey, that's okay. And I need to develop boundaries that don't take away that value of wanting to be a kind friend, of wanting to be supportive, but that allow me to sometimes be that loving, supportive friend and sometimes be that intense person who wants to make a change, be that person today.
That's right. One of the things that I talk to, I deal with a lot of parents as well, and they very keen on building their children's self-esteem. And it's a hard thing because what they often talk about is, my child is not good, let's say academically, and I have to find something that they're good at. And the idea is that you have to be good at something in order to be valuable. And that's a tough one. It's easy if kids are doing well or if we're doing well. It's much easier because the way people try and teach self-esteem is to go, look at what you did today, tick, tick, tick. But really, when we talk about the self, it's to really think about our uniqueness. And it's not in a way of, you're special just the way you are. It's not that kind of, my kids always go, it's not about being special, it's about being unique. We're all made up of different parts. And so the way that I often will say to parents is I'll go, who do you visit more? Do you visit your hairdresser or do you visit your neurosurgeon? And they'll go, my hairdresser, I'll go every 6 weeks. And I'll go, and who do you see more often, your garbage collector or your dentist? And you'll find, all the things that people, or your lawyer, they don't see, they prefer. We value all those things, but actually on a day-to-day basis, we all need each other. I always say, if I didn't have a hairdresser, I'd be in trouble. I can't cut my own hair. If I didn't have a baker down the road, we wouldn't have bread. If there wasn't a dairy, and if there weren't garbage collectors, we'd be in big, big trouble. And so I've developed a way where and I teach this to people, when I see a garbage collector, I say, thank you for doing this yucky job that I wouldn't want to do, but it's essential. And we know when there have been strikes and there are rats running all over your house, you really see them as essential services. We actually saw this during COVID, right? What the essential services were. So they weren't always those top tier jobs. It was things like garbage collection. So when we really understand we're made up of a society and everybody is different in a good way, because we're all contributing, the butcher, the baker, the candlestick maker, we're all doing our unique job. And the more we understand who we are, what our strengths and weaknesses are, what our values are, what we bring to the conversation, then it helps with the comparison, because it's going, you sort of said it earlier about we're all living our own lives, but it's a little bit deeper than that. It's going, I was born to be a hairdresser. I'm really good with the scissors, and that's all I have to be. I don't have to be the dentist next door because I don't have those skills. And to really internalize that we are given all these gifts or talents or propensities or ideas so that we can find our niche in the world. And again, if our value is to contribute, whether it's to do a good haircut or bake a good loaf of bread, that's as valuable as anything else, because that's our makeup and that's who we are.
Yes, I love that. There's this idea that we have to be good at everything. This idea that we have to be not just good at everything, but like perfect at everything. And that starts, I think, really at that young age with academics, with those tests that we have to take as kids, right? To see what percentage we're scoring in. And there's always that person who looks at us and says, oh, you scored a lot higher in math and not in English. What happened? Or in English and not reading comprehension. What happened? Right? It's like, you scored higher in one, but not the other. What's wrong with that? Why didn't you do that? Instead of celebrating, like, okay, this is something you're good at. Maybe this is something we need to work on. Or maybe you're perfectly average in it, and that's okay too. But it's always, why not this too? Why not this too? And then it gets to a point when we get older, we're like, why am I not good at everything? I'm supposed to be good at everything. And it becomes so hard to figure out who we are and who we want to be. Because I know going to college, for me, it was that, like, who do I want to be? Trying to figure that all out in 1 minute of meeting with my advisor and having to declare a major. And that's so overwhelming when my whole life I was taught, you have to be good at everything. You have to be good at everything. Then you get to a place, people are like, okay, so what are you good at? And you're like, I have no idea. Nothing, apparently. Right?
Very well put.
Constant fear of need to be good at everything.
That's right. It's so, so true. And I'll share with you a personal thing as well that, you can't see it because I'm sitting, but I'm quite short. And when I finished school, to be an air hostess, you had to look a particular way. Now you don't anymore, but you had to be young and beautiful and tall and thin. And that's when I first realized, no matter how much I want to be an air hostess, I never really wanted to, but I don't have the height, and that's not up to me. I wasn't created to be tall. And I have to accept that, therefore, being an air hostess is not on the agenda for me. And I can't feel bad about it because I didn't determine my own height. And it gave me a lot of, it was really competitive of people wanting to be air host. It was like really an exotic job in the 70s to be flying. It's not like now everyone flies all the time. And there were no middle-aged people who were air hostesses. And that's what they called them then. And now they probably have different, not gender specific, but they were called air hostesses. They were women. They were beautiful. And just the realization that I can't be everything, and that's okay. It's not a lack. I'm just not tall. And many things like that, I'm just not that, but not in a bad way. It's like, okay, so who am I? I'm short, and what do I do with that? How do I be the best short person I can be, kind of thing. It's that. And so it's not minimizing or at least you that. It's not even that. It's embracing who you are. These are my strengths, my weaknesses, my physical attributes, my background, all those things contribute to making me who I am now. And how can I live according to my values with that? Still be a loving person, a contributor, all the things that are important to me. Have fun, adventure, whatever's important to me.
That is such a powerful story, because it's so easy to be like, okay, this is what I'm lacking. This is what I'm lacking. This is why I can't do anything. This is my shortcoming. And then like live into that. And a lot of times it's things we can't control. I am not the world's most athletic person. I'm not really athletic at all. I don't run. But never been good at it. Never wanted to be that person who goes for a run. And so I'm not going to be an athlete. I'm not going to be a professional athlete, right? I'm not going to be that. And learning to accept that. I was a competitive cheerleader and everyone was so athletic. And I was the kid who was constantly falling and getting hurt, like broke almost every bone, always in a cast, constantly falling, getting hurt, and thinking, oh, I need to be athletic. I need to be better at this. I need to be this, and focusing on all those shortcomings instead of saying, I enjoy cheerleading. I enjoy what I'm doing. This is not going to go very far for me. I'm constantly getting hurt. What makes me feel happy, and embracing who I am instead of geez, I spent like 15 years constantly in a cast or a neck brace or something because I thought I had to be good at something that I was average. It wasn't terrible. I worked hard. But was I ever going to be as good as my best friend? Absolutely not, because she had so much more natural talent at that, and that's okay. And instead of accepting that about myself and being like, maybe I don't have to be in a neck brace every day of my life, my teenage years, maybe I can
Wow.
look for something else. If I think there's this idea that we have to, and not embracing who we are and what makes us different, what makes me and my best friend say I'm different. So many things. One of the first things, she's so much more athletic than me. And just because she was athletic and amazing cheerleader didn't mean that I needed to be or I wasn't good enough. But again, growing up with that comparison and never learning to, or at least at that age, not learning to accept who I am and the good and the not so great things, right? Like I was really good at math. Don't know why. Hate doing it, but I was so good at math. My best friend, so good at sports. They're both valid things that make us unique in different ways. But instead it was, why aren't you good at math? And why aren't you more athletic? Instead of celebrating what we were good at.
But your story, I also think, is very powerful. And I think I see a young girl in a cast every week, and I think those were real physical, you could see them, but actually people do that emotionally as well. They're walking around in emotional casts every week. They're damaging themselves in the effort to try and be something that they're not.
Yes. It's so common and it's so heartbreaking because, like you said, everyone is unique. Everyone has something of value to offer, and yet we spend so much of our time in our lives beating down on one thing that we aren't instead of celebrating all that we are.
Yep.
So,
And we have to sometimes find that for ourselves. Sometimes people help us, but sometimes we have to find that for ourselves. And as you say, to celebrate it.
exactly. And as we are wrapping up, do you have a piece of advice or encouragement for someone who's maybe just hasn't figured out how to embrace themselves yet and who are kind of stuck in a negative thought pattern and just don't know what to do?
Well, in terms of that, what I've been saying all the time is to really identify the self as context, to see yourself, work on who you are, what your value system is, what's important to you, and then notice thoughts and feelings and sensations and memories. As I always say, they're just coming to visit, and not to let them jerk you around, to really just, and know. But what my piece of advice, though, over above everything we're talking about and really want to share with the younger audience, is that it never stops. And not to see it as a fault. Now it's because I'm young and I'm going to outgrow it. In the 70s, that was the idea. If you went for enough therapy, you would get over things. It's really, life is an ongoing journey. And as I said to you, we might be at different sides of our careers, but really we're going through the same thing. And to embrace that, it's constant. And I find that very exciting. I love self-growth. So it's always like, which age am I going now and how, but it's really, there's always growth, there's always change, and it's not a deficit, it's not a problem, it's part of growing. So each time we learn something new and we adjust and we grow, we feel good, but it's never going to stop. And to embrace the change and love the growth, never see yourself as old, but see that growth is always, always possible.
Thank you so much for listening to Normalize the Conversation. Don't forget to subscribe, rate, and review. This podcast is an initiative of Inspiring My Generation, focusing on normalizing the conversation, bringing education and awareness to the forefront, and amplifying global voices to spark change and hope. Inspiring My Generation is a 501c3 nonprofit organization on a mission towards suicide prevention through awareness, conversation, education, and support. Connect with us on Instagram at Inspiring My Generation and visit our website inspiringmygeneration.org to learn more about our work and how you can make a difference.